Thank you. Maybe see the code back in session.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Lally.
Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
Sir, showing you another document. Do you
Thank
recognize
you.
that?
I do, yes.
And what do you recognize that?
This is the entire Google URL that was found on the browser state record. So broken down into each of its important sections.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Almost 6 years and it is the next exhibit.
Okay.
Same objection as before, Your Honor.
Okay, there are a couple of different objections. I need to see it, Tyber. I don't know what you're talking about.
You are unmuted.
That will be the next exhibit. Exhibit 618. Thank you.
May I return to the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Will you publish it for the jury?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Whiffen, what's up on the screen now, is that what you have before you as exhibit 618?
It is, yes.
And if you could, again, using the laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what are we looking at in exhibit 618?
Okay, so the left side of the table is the entire URL that was recovered from the browser state record. What I've done is broken it down into each of its individual components and explained what each of those components means. So the very first row is google.com/search. That just tells the browser that we're going to the Google website and that we want to run a search. The second part, the Q equals, is telling the browser what the query term is. So the query term here is host long to dying cold. The little plus symbols in between is in place of a space because spaces can't be part of a URL. Next, we have the input encoding and the output encoding. Just explains what kind of characters to use and what language to use when you're accepting the search query and giving it back to the user. And finally, the important part is the and client equals Safari. This is something that just tells Google that this query is being done using the Safari client. Again, if I was to use Safari and just visit the Google webpage and type that in, or type a search in, that part of the string wouldn't be there. That's only there because I used the Safari search bar as part of the Safari application to do that search.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Ms. Gilman, you can take that down. Now, sir, with reference to that, what if any relationship does that have to the information you were discussing just prior to the break?
Again, that confirms that this search was conducted via the Safari search bar feature that's part of the Safari browser application, the same one that caused the records to be recorded in the plist.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness again?
Yes.
You another document. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do, yes.
And what do you recognize that?
This is the live records from the browserstate.db database.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Commonwealth to seek to introduce the witness. Exhibit.
No objection.
Right, thank you. -.
May I return to the witness?
Thank you.
May you publish that for the jury as well, Your Honor?
Yes.
And Mr. Whitman, do you recognize what's up on the screen now is what you have before you as Exhibit 619?
I do, yes.
Now, turning back to the browser DB database for this particular device, with regard to the timestamp and the last view time, what, if anything, do you observe in reference to that depicted in this, and could you direct the jury's attention to it?
Yeah, so this timestamp is the last viewed time according to the database itself. It's already been offset so that it's in local time. This particular table, we can see there are records missing. Between records 4025 and 4031, we have, 4025 and 4031, we have 4026, 27, 28, 29, and 30 missing. And typically the timestamps that we do have here, some of them are separated by as little as a second or two.
Now, with reference to the House Long to Die in Cold, that was record 4028, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so based on the records missing from this portion of the phone as far as that database, what, if anything, did you endeavor to do with respect to ascertaining one?
So first of all, the task was to try to recover the deleted messages. The deleted history records from browser state. So first of all, was reading the deleted pages, essentially, to find the records that have been deleted from this current version of the page.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, I'm sure we'll see another document. Ask you to do that. Up in the finish.
Yes,
And do you recognize that document, sir?
I do, yes.
So what do you recognize that to be?
This is the same data source, so it's still browser state.
Last term that you use, what does that mean? I'm sorry.
So typically there can be lots of different versions of a page within a WAL file. So you may have several page ones, several page twos, and so on. What I looked at is doing is recovering the data where the records that I recover are different from each other. So if I recover the same record multiple times, I can ignore it. But if I recover the same record with a slight change, then I would show it in this view.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'll seek to introduce in the next exhibit.
No objection.
Okay. Exhibit 620.
Thank you.
With court permission, may I publish that for the jury?
Yes.
Again, Mr. Whitman, if you could, through the ways of order, find it helpful, direct the jury's attention to what are we looking at here, and what, if anything, did you uncover during this portion of your analysis?
Yes. So again, the very first column on the left is the unique identifying number. You'll notice that there are some numbers here which are repeated. This is, as I say, because the records are recovered from multiple versions of the same page. There was actually 16 versions of this record across 23 different versions of this particular page. These three had some difference. Primarily, it was what's called the tab order field, but that's the only difference that showed up across these three Host Long to Die in the Cold records. All the rest show the same URL, the same ID number at the beginning, or tab ID number, and the same timestamp. Worth noting, there is no title shown in this particular record. Again, that speaks to the fact that this page didn't successfully complete loading. Otherwise, there would be a title of Google search, Host Long to Die in the Cold, as you saw on some of the other examples earlier.
Now, sir, with respect to the table up here, is there any indication in regard to private browsing that you were talking about before?
No, in iOS 15, as I mentioned, if you are using private browsing mode, there is no records recorded in this database at all.
So the fact that that's not listed in this table, what, if anything, does that tell you?
Everything that was recorded in this database was conducted not in private browsing mode.
Now, with respect to your work within your field, are you familiar with a term called a session?
Yes.
And can you explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean and how it applies to this specific instance?
Essentially, the life of the particular tab. So when I start a tab and I start to use navigation, I go to different websites. All of my navigation events would be considered part of the same browsing session, essentially.
Now, sir, if I could turn your attention to the Knowledge C database for a moment. And again, if you could, maybe repeating just as far as, can you explain to the jury what you understand that term to mean as far as what is the Knowledge C database in respect to the other databases you've been talking about?
Yeah, so far the bulk of what we've discussed, the history.db, the browser state DB, and mobile safari.plist are all particular to the Safari application on iOS. Knowledge C is much more global. It's much more ingrained within iOS. Everything is essentially recorded in there on iOS 15. So again, backlight activity, unlock activity, application state activity, and web usage activity is all recorded as part of Knowledge C.
May I approach that, Your Honor?
Yes.
Another document, we can just review that for a couple of minutes.
Yes,
And do you recognize that document, sir?
I do, yes.
What do you recognize that?
This is a document I created based on the Knowledge C web usage records.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to seek to introduce and admit the exhibit. No objection.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may we publish that to the jury?
Yes.
Sir, again, what's up on the screen, do you recognize that as what's before you as the next exhibit?
I do, yes.
And if you could, again, Ms. Gilman, if I could ask you to scroll down just a bit to the green tabs. Thank you. Now, if you could, sir, again, using that laser pointer, if you could direct the jury's, well, first, can I ask you, what is it that we're looking at in this exhibit?
Okay, this is a particular what's called a stream within Knowledge C. A stream is basically all like information being grouped together. So in this particular case, the stream is related to Safari, and it's telling us what web page was visible on screen, what time it started and what time it finished.
Now, with respect to this particular tab, there are portions that are highlighted in green and portions that are highlighted in blue. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you explain to the jury what the portions highlighted in green represent?
I highlighted the sections in green due to their timestamp. So typically these items last between 2:27:37 a.m. and 2:27:53 a.m. So around the time of the Google search, if you were to believe the browser state.
And with respect to the items highlighted in blue, what if any? What are those?
The ones in blue are the actual Knowledge C records that show when the host long to die in the cold and the how long to die in the KICD web pages were actually visible on screen.
And so from this, what if anything were you able to ascertain as to the searches or the time associated with the searches from your analysis here?
At 2:27:40, the only websites that were visible on screen were related to Ozone Basketball and Hockenmock Sports, and that the how long to die in the KICD first appeared on screen at 6:23:56, and Host Long to Die in Cold first appeared on the screen at 10:33 a.m.
So those two searches from your review of this extraction in this device never appeared on the screen prior to 6:23 in the morning, correct?
Correct.
Now, from all this, sir, what, if anything, were you able to conclude with regard to these searches?
So essentially, ignoring the browser state timestamp is important because that is not a reliable timestamp to show when that URL was visited. We have mobile Safari.plist record searches that show 6:23 and 6:24, and we show the same searches with very similar timestamps within half a second as showing up on screen in Knowledge C for the how long to die in the KICD. And the host long to die in the cold was actually several hours later, which took a little bit more explaining, looking at Knowledge C and when the applications were opened up.
Now, with respect to your view of the extraction of the device around these times, were you able to ascertain as to what time this particular device connected to a Wi-Fi sometime after 2 a.m.?
I actually didn't look at any Wi-Fi connection information.
And with respect to 2:27 in the morning, 2:27 a.m., what were the websites that the device had visible, and what were the websites that the device was connected to at that time?
So according to the Knowledge C records, which were mostly also reflected within the history DB as well, it was the Hockenmock Sports, YouTube, Ozone Basketball, and that's it for the main domains.
Now, with regard to the Wi-Fi connection, is your memory exhausted as it pertains to that?
Yeah, I don't remember looking at Wi-Fi history.
John, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm showing you a copy of your report.
Thank you.
Review that and look up when you finish.
Okay.
And sir, I'm sorry, in the interest of time, if I could ask you just to look at the next page as well, just briefly. Is your memory refreshed, sir?
I do, yes.
May I approach to retrieve?
Yes.
So, Mr. Whiffen, from your review of the extraction report in regard to this device at Ms. McCabe's, about what time was the connected to a Wi-Fi network called McCabe?
I believe it was 0207. I didn't actually remember the timestamp just then.
And with respect to the disconnection from that, do you know when that was?
I can't recall.
Your Honor, if I may approach?
Yes.
I think there's the time, Your Honor, may the witness.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sir, if you can, from looking at your report, if you can just indicate to the jury as far as the Wi-Fi connections with.
Okay. The Wi-Fi was connected at 0212 and disconnected at 0539. There was no further Wi-Fi activity until 11 a.m.
Thank you, sir. May I approach this to retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
Now, sir, are you familiar with something called a write-ahead log or a wall file?
I am, yes.
And if you could explain to the jury what your understanding of that term is and how it applies in this specific case.
Yes. So a write-ahead log is essentially a temporary store for database pages. When I'm talking about database pages, it's not something that the user ever sees. It's part of the structure of SQLite databases. Just as chapters in a book can span multiple pages, data in a database can span multiple pages also. And it's not necessarily in the expected order. It's up to the database application to find those pages and order them correctly in order to display the data to the user. The WAL file, on the other hand, it still contains pages, but they're organized in frames, essentially. And a frame is the same as a page, but with additional information at the top that identifies what page it is. So I mentioned earlier that it's possible to have multiple versions of the same page within the WAL file. That's because every time I write a record to the database, a new frame is created and the page is updated. So for example, if I was to have a new database, create a record, a new frame is created with page 1, and it adds my record. As soon as I add a second record to that database, a new frame is created again. So I now have frame 1 and frame 2. Both of those frames would contain a version of page 1. The first frame would contain only record 1. The second frame would contain records 1 and 2, and so on. Forensically, where it gets interesting is on the edit or deletion of a record, because the same process is applied. So now a new frame is created. The page number is the same as previously, so we'd still have a page 1. But now only the records that I don't want to delete are copied across. So I could end up in a situation where I have 4 versions of page 1. One has record 1, one has records 1 and 2, one has records 1, 2, and 3. But the most recent version of the page only has record 1 and 3, for example. Now, a normal piece of database software will only look for the most recent version of the page, so you would only see records 1 and 3. The forensic software can look at all previous versions of the page as well, and that's how we're able to recover record 2 in that instance. And that's essentially how we were able to recover the browser state record from WAL.
Now, sir, turning to that issue as far as deletion, what, if anything, well, let me ask you this first, just before we leave the WAL file. So with regard to the WAL file, what, if any, relevance is there that certain data only exists within the WAL file?
So again, if I create a record that's in the WAL and delete it before it gets committed, which means when it gets merged into the main database, then it exists only in the WAL. It could be that it's a brand new record that just hasn't been written yet, or it could be one which was deleted from the database prior to the commit occurring.
When you say commit, what exactly is, what does that mean?
Commit's a process where essentially the database looks at all of the most recent versions of each page in the WAL file, copies them out from WAL and puts it into the main database, and then deletes the WAL file altogether. So at that point, we lose the ability to recover data from WAL because the WAL doesn't exist, but we have all the most recent versions of the page.
Now, so turning to the concept or the topic of deletion of data, what, if anything, did you find with regard to deletion of data with respect to this search as it applied to the P list that you discussed before?
Recovering data that's been deleted from a P list is not really possible. So all we can say is if this record exists within the P list, it hasn't been deleted.
Now, same question with regard to issues of deleted data with regard to the history DB.
There was no records of any, so there's no evidence of any records being deleted from history.db since early January. I think it was like the 3rd of January up to February 2nd.
And how were you able to tell that with regard to the history DB?
Again, every record is given a unique number, and there'd be a gap in that numbering system if a file or if a record had been deleted. The fact that there was no gaps indicates that nothing had been deleted.
And with regard to deletion, what, if anything, were you able to ascertain with regard to deletion versus web usage in the Knowledge C database?
Knowledge C contains such a large amount of different type of data that's always being added and deleted for various reasons, none at the discretion of the user. It's a completely system-driven event to delete information from Knowledge C. So we can't say what was deleted from Knowledge C, but we can see that during the times of Safari usage, records exist within Knowledge C that indicate, or certainly appear to indicate, that nothing was deleted.
What, if anything, were you able to find with regard to deletion in respect to the browser state DB data?
Browser state did have numerous records that had been deleted. Some we were able to recover. 3 records from browser state all had a timestamp very similar to 22740. These were 3 records that had been deleted at some point.
What are some of the options for deleting data from that particular, from the browser state DB?
So the first most prominent option is to delete absolutely everything from the device, or delete all history from the device, which, as I mentioned earlier, we know that didn't happen because we still have other records. So the only other real option is to delete selectively. That could mean delete one at a time, and it could mean delete either the full day, the last 2 days, or last hour. But in all of those cases, the record must exist in history.db in order to be deleted from browser state. The fact that this record, the hoslong and the how long today and the key don't exist within the history database would mean that the user would never have the option to selectively delete that record.
May I approach John?
Yes.
Show you another document,
Thank you.
sir. We can look at that after we finish.
Yes,
Do you recognize that, sir?
I do, yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
So this is a list of the browser state DB records showing a red line where a record or more have been deleted.
And again, the term deleted, as far as it applies to this particular area of the database, what exactly does that mean again?
It means the record has been marked as deleted. If you were to read this database in a regular database application, you would not see it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we can't recover it.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Commonwealth will seek to introduce and admit as the next exhibit.
The exhibit,
I have no objection to the exhibit, if that was the question.
that is the question.
Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Your Honor, with court's permission, may we publish Exhibit 622 to the jury?
Yes.
Again, sir, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you as Exhibit 622?
It says yes.
And if you could, please, using the laser pointer, direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observe in this.
So again, we can use the number down the left side, which will identify the unique identifier given to each of these records. And we can see that the red line between the first two records indicates that records between 3986 and 3993 have been deleted. We can see that record 4001 is deleted. Records between 4004 and 4019 have been deleted. Record 4020 was deleted. And then finally, records between 4025 and 4031 had been deleted also.
Now, sir, as far as records 4024 and 4025, what, if anything, were you able to ascertain as far as the dates and times associated with those?
Yeah, so these particular records show up at 227.31 and 227.33 respectively. And this matched records within Knowledge C that showed that at this particular time when the tab took focus, that particular website was also shown visible to the user in Safari.
Now, as far as the date and time for 4024 and 4025, what, if anything, did you observe with respect to the date and time for 4026? And what can you tell about that?
So 4026 was approximately a second or two after the record here, 227.33. I believe it was at 227.35. And then again, there was another record, 4027, which again was another 2 or 3 seconds after that time. So within a 9-second period between 227.31 and 227.40, there were 5 records within browser state DB that had a timestamp within that 9 seconds, all with completely different types of website, ranging from PayPal, banking, YouTube, and the Hoslongstein code.
Now, sir, with respect to, are you familiar with the term called spontaneous deletion?
I believe so.
And can you explain to the jury what that is?
It's not a term that I would use, but essentially a cleanup operation would occur on the device where it would look for orphaned records, records that are old enough to not be required anymore, and they would just be deleted by the system without any direction from the user.
Now, during the testing that occurred, your testing, which occurred with respect to this device, what, if anything, did you observe with regard to spontaneous deletion?
I wasn't able to replicate the spontaneous deletion. I was able to replicate completely orphaned records. So a record that existed in browser state without a corresponding record in history.db. And it meant that there was no way for me to delete that record manually without deleting everything from the device regarding history.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
May we approach, please?
Okay, could you turn the lights on, please, Tony? Thank you.
You are unmuted.
All right, so you're introducing those 4 pages or whatever it is, Mr. Lally?
Yes, sir.
As one exhibit?
As the next 4 exhibits.
Okay. All right, so those will be admitted. 23. Were you going to publish those? Because you can go ahead and publish them while this is.
I don't think that's,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, great.
I had just one moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
Your Honor, if I can take them just one by one, I think that might be.
Okay.
I'm showing your document. Do you recognize
you.
that?
I do, yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
This is a report from my Artex tool showing the history database at 2139.34 on the 27th of January and 2255.09 on the 27th of January.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Almost to introduce the minutes of the next exhibit.
All right, so all 4 are in. Okay, so you don't need to, you already marked them?
They have not been marked.
Okay.
Exhibit 623.
I have one moment, Your Honor. And Your Honor, the court's permission if we could publish that to the jury.
Yes.
Now, sir, with regard to this, we're looking at record number 4026, is that correct?
Yes, I believe we are.
And again, if you could direct the jury's attention to what exactly are we looking at in this exhibit with regard to record 4026?
Yeah, so in the right column, we see the source of the information. So history.db is the database. History_visits would be the table. And then the unique identifying number of 31407 and 31408. We see that the start time or the time that particular website was navigated to, according to history.db, was, as I say, both on the 27th of January, one at 21:39 and 34 seconds local time, and one at 22:55:09 local time. And both of these websites are related to Hockenmock Sports. We have the URL at the top, followed by the title of the page, followed by a visit count that tells us how many times that page has been visited before.
Sorry, one moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
That next document, do you recognize that, sir?
I do, yes.
What do you recognize that to be?
This is the same kind of report. This is related to the YouTube record that was part of the browser state database related to It's Raining Men on YouTube.
Is that the record number 4027, is that correct?
It is, yes.
Your Honor, may I approach again?
Yes.
That's the mark of the next exhibit.
Okay.
Exhibit 624.
Your Honor, very briefly, may we publish that to the jury as
Yes.
well? And sir, what's up on the screen now, is that what you have before you as the next exhibit?
It is, yes.
And again, if you could, using the laser pointer, just direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observe in this record of 4027.
Yeah, so again, we have 5 records related to the YouTube video, It's Raining Men, starting at record 31398, 31399, 31400, 31401, and 31402. These were all accessed on the afternoon of the 27th of January 2022.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Another document, do you recognize that?
I do.
What do you recognize that to be?
This is the same again, related to record 4029. Shows that a website was visited on the 28th of January 2021.
And you want to ask that this be marked?
Okay.
Excuse me, as the next exhibit.
625.
Okay.
And Your Honor, with the court's permission, may we publish that briefly?
Yes.
Sir, what's up on the screen, is that what you have before you as the next exhibit in regards to record 4029?
It is, yes.
And again, if you could explain to the jury what we're looking at.
Yeah, so this URL, cantonma.org, relates to the URL that was provided in record 4029 of the browser state database. It shows that this web page was accessed at 1 p.m. And 17 minutes and 0 seconds, and 1 p.m. 17 minutes and 8 seconds on the 28th of January 2022.
May I approach again, Your Honor?
Yes.
Another document, sir, do you recognize that?
I do.
And what do you recognize that?
Again, the same kind of report, again, this time for record 4030 from browser state, and it shows access to Ozone Basketball.
And with regard to that report, as far as the same kind of report, that's from your tool, the ArtX tool, is that correct?
Correct.
And that ArtX tool, is that a widely available tool used within the field of forensic investigators?
Yeah, it's something that I say I've worked on for around 5 years. I've given it away free to the digital forensics community for 5 years. There's approximately 600 users globally, and it's taught as part of the SANS digital forensics training courses.
Thank you. May I approach again just to retrieve, Your Honor?
Yes.
Almost at access to mark as the next
Yes.
exhibit.
626.
Thank you.
May we publish that for the
Yes.
Your Honor? With regard to this exhibit up on the screen, record 4030, again, if you could just draw the jury's attention or direct the jury's attention to what, if anything, of significance you observe in this exhibit.
Yeah, so again, we have records from the history database related to Ozone Basketball, and it shows that this website was accessed at 11 a.m. and 26 minutes on the 25th of January 2022.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gilman, you can. Now, with respect to sort of the totality of your analysis, Mr. Whiffen, what, if any, conclusions did you come to as to the timing of the 2 searches in question with relation to what you observed in your analysis and testing of this device?
Yes. So in conclusion, I determined that the tab that was used was focused at 227.40. So the tab was opened at that time, at which point it was being used to show Ozone Basketball and Hockomock Sports websites. The 6:23 timestamp is when the search was first conducted. Never loaded the page, otherwise there'd be a record in the history database. And while that page was still loading, a secondary search was conducted for Hoslong to Die in the Cold. Again, that page never loaded either, although these both did show up in the Knowledge C database to show that the browser was trying to display these pages. Safari was closed prior to the Hoslong to Die in the Cold record being shown on screen at all. But when it was reopened at 10:33, in regards to whatever other safari activity was to be conducted, it appeared on screen. So we have a 10:33 record where Hoslong to Die in the Cold was shown on screen, even though the page never successfully loaded.
And with respect to your analysis and your testing here, what, if any, opinion do you have as to whether or not any of the data marked as deleted was actually user deleted, or a user actually actively went through the process of deleting the data?
Yeah. So again, we know that she didn't, we know that nobody deleted the entire history. So that leaves the only option to be selectively deleting records. The fact that there are no missing records in HistoryDB shows that it's impossible that that record could have been deleted by the user. It would have just been orphaned in the database, and I believe would have deleted itself at some stage whenever a particular cleanup function ran. Although, as I said earlier, I haven't been able to replicate that. I was able to continue to read the various versions of the page that contained Hoslong to Die in the Cold browser state record, and found that it existed at the same time as another record that was created at least 2 days later. Therefore, I can determine that that particular record was not deleted until, at the earliest, 10 p.m. on the 31st of January. And that it's not possible that the user could have created or caused that deletion to occur.
Now, over the course of your analysis and testing or review of the extraction in this case, did you have occasion to review an affidavit of a Mr. Richard Green?
I did, yes.
And what, if any, opinions or conclusions do you have as to that affidavit?
I had issues with several of the statements being made as part of the affidavit.
And what issues were those, sir?
Namely, it specified that CELLBRITE report identified that the search was conducted at 2:27:40. And as I've explained, I believe the tab took focus at 2:27:40, not when the search occurred. The report mentioned that CELLBRITE report identified it was deleted by the user. We don't do that. We'll tell you that a record is deleted, but we don't specify how the record was deleted. That's something for the examiner to determine. I forget. Oh, and then there was a mention of the purpose of the browser state database. The explanation given was correct for iOS 14 and below, but not for 15 and above, which is relevant in this case.
Now, you mentioned this issue as far as coming up, obviously, in this case and some other instances, phone calls or inquiries that you received from Austria and other places. What, if anything, have you or your company, CELLBRITE, done with regard to rectifying this issue?
Well,
I'll allow it.
okay, we recognize that this timestamp could be misleading. Regardless of how we label that timestamp, the very fact that a timestamp is there, we feel would be or potentially misrepresented. So the decision was taken to remove the timestamp altogether from that information. So now we show the web page was visited, but we don't attribute a time to that purely because it could be wildly inaccurate.
Thank you. Your Honor, this may be the appropriate time for the instruction.
Okay. All right. So jurors, we're about to see a demonstration by Mr. WHIFFIN. It's simply a demonstration to help you to understand the evidence that you've heard. It's not evidence from this case, but it helps you understand the evidence in this case. You must decide this case based solely on a fair consideration of the evidence and nothing but the evidence. But this is a demonstration to help you understand that evidence.
Your Honor, our rights are preserved, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And so to that point, Mr. WHIFFIN, were you able to prepare a demonstration in regard to what you've been discussing through the course of your testimony?
I was, yes.
And that demonstration doesn't specifically reflect on the searches or the extraction report that you looked at in this case, correct?
Correct.
But as far as the overall issues that you've been discussing in your testimony, correct?
That's correct.
And with court's permission, may the witness now illustrate that to the jury.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, on the left there, you can see a screen of an iPhone, and that is a phone that I have in front of me live. It's just demonstrating what I can see on the phone. This is my RTX tool, and the feature which I continuously use this tool for, which is not available really in any other vendor tools, is the ability to create a live connection between my computer and the phone. The live connection is what I've just started here, and what's going to happen is all of the files and folders that exist on the phone will be mapped to my computer so that I can navigate it. I can look around and I can take a look at near enough live records on the device. Prior to the availability of this tool, I would have to test a theory on a phone, do an extraction, and then pass the extraction, which could take anywhere between 20 minutes and several hours. The reason that I'm using this tool today is because I can do those same tests within 10 or 20 seconds, typically. So I just need to wait for this section to do. So it's already mapped out all of the files and folders. It's now asking for a few important pieces of information, which it will then populate on the screen. So information such as the device, serial number, etc. What we're interested in, though, is the browser state record. So I can go to the browser state database and take a look at that and open that up. And you can see that at this moment in time, I have no records in the database at all. If I go back into the live view of the phone, you can see I have Safari open from last night. So it's been sat in the background overnight and not doing anything. But at 10 past 8 last night, I performed this search in a brand new window. So started Safari, opened up a new tab, immediately searched for new tab at 2010 on the 16th of June. If I now search for the time right now, 1442, what I can do is go back to my RTX tool and press this reload button. That's going to delete the database from my computer only and copy the most recent copy of the database and WAL file from my phone back to my computer, where it shows me I still have no records. That's expected behavior because at the moment I've not closed the tab. So if this, again, was iOS 14, there would be a record there to say what tab I had open. But iOS 15 doesn't work that way. If I now go back to my tabs and actually just close this window, I can go back into RTX and hit reload again. And we now see we have some records. I can look at this particular record and you'll see the title is 1442 Google search. You'll see the Google search record here. So I just need to change the time zone as well to Eastern time. So you see it's the most recent search which I conducted, the 1442 search. The last viewed time, though, still shows as 8:10 p.m. last night, because that's the time that the tab was focused, not the time that the search was conducted.
Thank you, sir. If I may have a moment, John?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. I have no further questions.
Okay, Ms. Tianetti?
Thank you, Ron. Good afternoon, Mr. Wilson.
Good afternoon.
Sir, you had spoken a little bit about what was your assignment here in terms of the data that was sent to you. And I believe that you testified regarding that 2:27 a.m. or 2:27 and 42nd a.m. timestamp that it didn't make sense to the investigators, correct?
Correct.
Were you told that one of the investigators was Trooper Michael Proctor?
I don't recall any names being mentioned. The ticket came to me, or the request came to me via another CELLBRITE employee who'd been asked about this case and asked whether we could offer any help.
Okay, thank you. You would agree with me that when your making or doing a simulation, you want it to be as close to an apples-to-apples comparison as you can get,
As best possible, yes.
and to get truly accurate research results, you want to eliminate as many variables as you can, correct?
Correct.
You wouldn't, for instance, want to use an Android operating system to try to replicate the activity from Jennifer McCabe's Apple iPhone, correct?
Correct.
What version of iOS did you use for your testing of Jennifer McCabe's data?
So this test has been undertaken on various different versions of iOS, from iOS 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and most recently on the beta version of 18 last week. This particular demonstration was on 15.8.2.
Okay. And you're aware, you said 15.8.2.
Correct. I've also tested on 15.7.
Oh, fair enough. You're aware, however, that Ms. McCabe was using iOS version 15.2.1, correct?
Correct.
And you would agree that the way that an artifact is stored would depend on the iOS version that you use, correct?
Correct.
And your simulation did not use the iOS version that Ms. McCabe was running on her iPhone, correct?
Correct. I used the closest version I could find.
So I'd like to ask you some questions about the characteristics of browserstate.db-wall and record number 4028, if I can.
Okay.
That record number, I believe you testified, was found to be deleted, correct?
Correct.
But you were able to recover the date and time associated with it, correct?
The date and time of the last viewed?
Of that record number.
Yes.
And what was that date and time?
2:27 and 40 seconds a.m.
You were also able to recover the content of that particular Google search itself?
I was able to recover the URL for it, yes.
Okay, and what was that Google search?
Hoslong to die in the cold.
And it's true, however, that the session history could not be recovered, correct?
That's correct.
Now, given those characteristics that we've just discussed, did your testing result in a WAL file record, a WAL file record, that matched the characteristics of 4028? In other words, deleted with session history not recoverable?
The issue with the session history, I was able to recover only the first page of session history. What happens is when there's a large amount of data that's split over multiple pages, if it's a live record, all those pages point to each other so that you can chain it together and get one large amount of information. Once they've been deleted, some of those pages can be overwritten and therefore the pointers don't make sense anymore. So the amount of information in this session was way larger than one page, and I wasn't able to recover anything further.
Okay, and you'd agree that the simulation was done using a different operating system, correct?
Correct.
Were you able to recreate the other deletions that appeared before and after that record 4028?
Which deletion, sorry?
Well, you had testified, and I believe there was an exhibit that was introduced that showed that there were multiple deletions both before and after, correct?
Correct.
Were you able to recreate those deletions?
When I manually deleted records from the history, then the records also were deleted from the browser state.
Now, I believe that you testified, and if you didn't, I believe it's in your report, that there are essentially 5 mechanisms for record deletions in the browser state database, correct?
Correct.
You ruled out 4 of them pretty quickly, correct?
Correct.
And I believe you've testified to that today, correct?
Correct.
The only remaining option was selective deletion by a user, or there's some internal mechanism for record deletion that is not fully understood, correct?
Correct.
And you know of, as you testified today, you know of no internal mechanism for record deletion that's not fully understood, correct?
I've not been able to replicate that function, no.
All right. If there is no unknown internal mechanism for record deletion that's not fully understood, that would leave selective deletion by a user, correct?
Not in this case, no.
All right. Well, selective deletion, you would agree, means that a user selects what to delete, correct?
Correct.
And regarding the user, the term user, what is that? Who is that?
Whoever's using the phone at the time.
Okay, so it's actually somebody who is using the actual iPhone itself, correct?
Correct.
Not necessarily a computer expert, correct?
Correct.
Would you agree with me that somebody who had access to the data before it was extracted and sent to you could have made selective deletions of the data?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No, I don't.
Are you aware of an app called MySQL?
Yes.
What is MySQL?
MySQL is just a method for viewing SQLite databases.
All right. If someone had access to the raw data, again, before it was sent to you, and used that app, they could make selective deletions of the data, couldn't they?
I assume you're talking about opening up the extraction, taking out the particular file and editing it?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You're right, Your Honor. I apologize. And I apologize to you. If you could restate your question or answer or give me your full answer.
Okay. So it would be possible with the extraction to take out particular databases, alter them, and put them back into the extraction. But there's something called a hash mechanism that we have in place that would it essentially hashes the original data, and then it can be hashed again at a later date. It results in a long string of characters, and if there's any changes to the original data, then we'd see that it's been modified.
Would you agree with me that someone with access to that data in an appropriate application or program could also delete and renumber history.db and knowledge.cso so that it would appear as though there was no break in the numbering, so that it would also appear that nothing was deleted?
It's potentially possible, but would require a large amount of knowledge and skill to do in a way that can't be detected.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Lally?
Any discrepancy between the iOS version in Ms. McCabe's phone and the iOS version in the demonstration that you did? What, if any, impact does that have on what you showed this jury?
So in this particular case, every iOS version that I tested, as I mentioned, from 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, the timestamp is always referring to the time that the tab took focus. So even though there are some differences with when the record's created, the meaning behind that timestamp has been consistent.
And what you were asking about what you were asked about in regard to selective deletion, you indicated that there's no evidence of that in this case. Is that correct?
Correct. Selective deletion would require that the record existed in the history database in order to be selected to be deleted. The fact that there's no missing records indicates it was never written into that database and therefore could not have been selectively deleted.
Now, the hash mechanism that you testified as far as detecting whether or not someone had surreptitiously gone in and deleted things, did you see any evidence of that in your review of the extraction of Ms. McCabe's phone?
I didn't have access to the hash information to see whether any changes had been made. That's something that the original examiner would have had access to. From my point of view, there was nothing in there that would indicate that tampering had occurred. The timestamps all made sense for the files. The historical pages all made sense. So it's probably possible, but it would take a large amount of skill to do.
Now, with regard to your analysis and your testing in this case, again, what is your opinion or conclusion as to when these two Google searches were conducted?
I'm of no doubt that the only time those two searches were conducted was at 6:23 and 6:24 on the morning of the 29th.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further on.
prior to today, have you ever heard of spontaneous deletion?
It's not a term that I'm familiar with.
Thank you.
All right, sir, you are all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you need a couple minutes to take your stuff down?
I can probably be quite fast. Thank you.